I was looking to hire an escort. It all started on one of those encrypted, high-end websites where you can find that sort of thing. I was just trying to book some male companionship for the evening, but I made a tiny, critical error. I accidentally hired a professional killer. My opening message was straight to the point, "So, what's your rate for one night?" His reply was instantaneous. "How many targets?" Targets? Plural? My mind reeled. This service supported a multiplayer mode? A blush crept up my neck, and I hesitated for what felt like an eternity before I finally typed out my own name. Just one, I wrote. Is there any chance of a discount? It was the 10th day since I'd broken up with my ex, which also happened to be the time of the month when my hormones were going into overdrive. I was tossing and turning, completely unable to sleep. Finally, I gave up and started scrolling through some private websites in the dead of night, looking for some material to help me, let's say, relax. As I clicked from page to page, a photo suddenly flashed across my screen that was so explosive it stopped my finger mid-swipe. The man in the picture was wearing a dark tactical helmet and mask, and his muscular chest was straining so hard against his tight combat suit that it looked like the fabric might tear apart at any second. The only skin visible was a pair of large, powerful hands gripping a weapon. His knuckles were well-defined, the veins prominent and strong. The weapon itself was impressively large, yet in his grasp, it seemed almost small, perfectly controlled. I couldn't help but imagine his long, elegant fingers squeezing the trigger. And what if it wasn't a trigger his fingertips were caressing, but... I subconsciously pressed a hand to my nose, feeling a sudden rush of heat to my face. This was top tier. A masked, muscular god. I frantically clicked on the user's profile, hungry for more pictures. But most of his content was hidden. To even start a conversation, you had to pay for a subscription. Below the paywall, there was a long list of anonymous, glowing reviews. Worth every penny. Extremely professional service. Clean, efficient, no loose ends. I thought about it for exactly 1 second before the pieces clicked into place. This had to be one of those exclusive, members-only private service websites. I did a quick calculation of the subscription fee on my fingers and sucked in a sharp breath. The price was not low. This was one very expensive escort. Normally, I would have just drooled over the pictures for a bit and then moved on. But I was still furious with my cheating ex-boyfriend, and I desperately needed to treat myself to something nice to feel better. We modern women have to be good to ourselves, right? I can always earn more money, but I refuse to let my 20s slip by, sitting alone, and missing the opportunity to experience a masked, muscular god. Without another thought, I subscribed to the most expensive package available. Sure enough, a private message from him arrived almost immediately. What service do you require? His messaging style was just like his photo, steady and cold. I could almost picture him, his expression grim and severe, shooting me a glance as sharp as a razor's edge. I placed a hand over my fluttering heart and mustered up the courage to ask. How much would it cost to have you, for one session? He replied instantly, how many targets? What? He really did offer a multiplayer mode. I was floored by the sheer breadth of his business offerings. I guess the economy really is tough. Even this line of work is hyper-competitive now. After a moment of silent contemplation, I typed, just one. Then, after a pause, I added, can I get a discount? The other end went silent for a moment. He seemed caught off guard by my question. After a few seconds, a new message popped up in bold text. Price is non-negotiable. So cold. His business must be booming. He must have realized he sounded a bit harsh, because another message followed a moment later. Any special requests? Oh. Now that was good service. The perks of paying top dollar, I guess. It was enough to get my mind racing. My face flushed bright red as my imagination bolted like a wild horse, replaying scenes from every steamy movie and novel I'd ever consumed. It took me a long time to timidly type out my next question. Is anything on the table? He fell silent again, this time for much longer than before. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, two simple words appeared on my screen. Extra charge. And just like that, the little hummingbird of excitement fluttering in my chest flew straight into a window and died. My desire evaporated instantly. Oh, then never mind. As requested, I sent over my name, date of birth, and a recent photo. Then, I tacked on a question of my own. What's your name? Mr. Cool Guy's response was, predictably, cool. You don't need to know. Once our transaction is complete, we will have no further contact. Wow. So this was what a purely financial relationship felt like. The world of adults is truly something else. I persisted, I have to call you something, right? A screen name? He seemed to consider it, the little typing icon appearing and disappearing for a moment before he slowly responded. Codename, Crow. When the appointed day finally arrived, I grabbed my purse, practically buzzing with excitement, and rushed to our designated meeting spot. I sat in the coffee shop, fidgeting in my seat, checking the time on my phone over and over again. But I waited for a long, long time and he never showed. As the agreed-upon time came and went with no sign of him, my heart began to feel like a beach at low tide, slowly drying out and becoming empty. Was I being stood up? Before leaving in defeat, I made one last desperate attempt, craning my neck to scan the entrance again. The coffee shop was empty, and so was the area right outside the door. The street beyond was nearly deserted. Unwilling to give up, my eyes swept back and forth across the scene. It wasn't until my gaze landed on a tall figure standing in the shade of a tree across the street that my focus sharpened. My eyes lit up. The man was tall and lean, with a chest so well developed that his button-down shirt was stretched taut, without a single wrinkle. Yet, he had it buttoned all the way to the very top. He was also wearing dark sunglasses and a face mask, keeping himself completely concealed. The only part of him visible was a pair of hands with long, distinct knuckles, which seemed to be the only source of light in the entire picture he presented. Normally, you wouldn't be able to recognize someone without seeing their face. But am I a normal person? I am the kind of dedicated VIP who will create 3 different accounts in 3 different countries and use 2 separate email addresses just to follow a TV series. A true fan has a hawk's eye for detail. And my God, those hands were exactly my type. I hurried across the street toward him. Up close, he seemed even more impressive. He had a powerful, athletic build, a narrow waist that flared up to broad shoulders, and he had to be close to 6'3". There was a noticeable bulge in his pants pocket. I couldn't possibly imagine what that might be. That chest, those legs, that height difference. I was practically drooling, and the resentment I'd felt from waiting so long began to melt away. Maybe he just got the location wrong? I reached out and tapped his shoulder. What are you doing over here? Why didn't you come across? The tap seemed to startle him. He looked at me, bewildered for a moment, then took a cautious step back, his eyes surveying me with a cold, detached air. You have the wrong person. I couldn't help but touch my ear. His voice was incredible, deep and resonant like a cello, each note vibrating in a way that made my heart itch. But it was so cold. I tried to explain again. No, I don't. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Since you weren't coming to find me, I had to come find you. He was silent for a few seconds, but his tone remained frosty. I don't know what you're talking about. I was starting to get frustrated. I put my hands on my hips, puffing out my cheeks in annoyance. What is your problem? Don't you understand how this works? You get paid to do a job. Thinking of backing out? It's too late for that. The man stood silent for another moment. His chest rose and fell as if he were letting out a long, slow sigh. With an air of resignation, he took off his sunglasses and mask, revealing a strikingly handsome face. He slid one hand into his slightly bulging pocket and took a step closer to me. His narrow eyes flicked toward me, as if he were trying to assess my true intentions. Since you already know, what is it you want? With such a stunningly attractive man standing so close, all my frustration vanished. I shyly lowered my eyes, my gaze darting around. I booked a hotel room. We can talk in there. I cleared my throat and gestured vaguely at our surroundings. There are too many people out here on the street. It's not a good place to do business. He didn't move for a long moment. Afraid he'd gotten the wrong idea, I quickly waved my hands to clarify. Don't worry, it's not like I'm actually going to do anything to you. I just wanted to meet and talk a little. My voice got quieter with every word. Anything else, unless you're willing. Suddenly, the man stepped forward, leaning down toward me. His shadow fell over me completely. Compared to his tall, powerful frame, I felt like a delicate porcelain doll, like I could break with a single touch. I instinctively held my breath. Seeing my reaction, a quick, fleeting smile touched his lips. In that instant, the icy facade cracked, revealing something deep, dark, and dangerously enticing beneath the surface. His low, magnetic voice slid into my ear. I'm not the one who should be worried. You, on the other hand, should be very worried about what I might do to you. And with that, he turned and started walking toward the hotel. He left me standing there, frozen in place. It took me a full minute to let out a little "oh" and press my hands to my burning cheeks. Did he just flirt back at me? Is this the power of a professional? It's terrifying. We were sitting side by side on the edge of the large hotel bed. The silence was heavy and awkward. I decided I had to break the ice, so I just grabbed the first topic that came to mind. So, why did you get into this line of work? Don't know how to do anything else, he said flatly. My mind immediately concocted a tragic backstory, a poor boy, a high school dropout, unemployed and desperate, forced by circumstances onto this deviant path. I tried to offer a polite, comforting response. Well, there's nothing wrong with this. It's a time-honored profession. You shouldn't feel ashamed. Crow didn't seem to want to discuss his career. He frowned. Let's get down to business. What do you want to do? Getting straight to the point, huh? Isn't this a little fast? I shyly wrung my hands. Oh, okay. So, what can we do? Can we, take care of business? I asked, making little finger guns. His frown deepened. You mean, I take care of you? Huh? What else would it be? Confused, I asked, or, should I take care of you? No. Okay, then can I touch your, gun? No. Just a peek? No. Well, touching your chest has to be okay, right? Absolutely not. Crow's sudden shout made me jump. I stared, bewildered, at the man who had suddenly scooted a foot away from me, the tips of his ears turning a faint shade of red. What was he so worked up about? My other requests were way more outrageous. Maybe his chest was a sensitive spot? After a moment of thought, I decided to just ask him directly. Do you only provide a specific type of service? He thought about it, too. Yes. So, a traditionalist. Looks like we're just going to be having a nice, wholesome chat under the covers tonight. I let out a bored yawn. Fine, whatever. I'm going to take a shower. Make yourself at home. He didn't move a muscle, seeming completely indifferent. But when I came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, I found Crow sitting on the bed, scrolling through my phone. Hey! Do you have any professional ethics at all? I lunged at him, trying to snatch it back. But he was too tall. He simply lifted his arm, holding the phone easily out of my reach no matter how much I strained on my tiptoes. The whole struggle just ended up looking like I was throwing myself into his arms, pressing and rubbing against him. I almost buried my face in his magnificent chest several times. Crow's lips were pressed into a thin, tight line. He grabbed my wrists and pinned them to the headboard, immobilizing me. His voice was a low, strained rasp. You're my employer? I froze for a second, then it hit me. He had been reading my chat history with him. Did he think someone else had hired his services for me? What's wrong with a woman hiring an escort for herself? What century is he living in? Such an old-fashioned relic. I shot him an annoyed glare. That's right. So what? The grip on my wrist suddenly loosened. Crow's brows knitted together as he stared at me, his gaze sharp and piercing. His expression looked almost disappointed. Like a parent catching their kid doing something stupid. He scolded me in a low voice, "You're so young. How could you be so hopeless?" His words stunned me. When I snapped out of it, I was even angrier. I was right. He's nothing but a judgmental, feudal-era fossil. I'm not taking this job. The man dropped the words coldly and let me go. I stared, dumbfounded, as he turned and strode toward the door. What does he mean? Is he rejecting me? A service provider, being picky about his clients? The nerve. I'm going to write him a 500-word negative review. Fueled by indignation, I scrambled off the bed, threw on my clothes, and chased him out into the hallway. If you won't do it, there are plenty of others who will. I'll find someone better right now. I'll find 10 of them. The figure down the hall stopped dead in his tracks. The man turned back, his expression a complicated mix of emotions. If I refuse, you'll just find someone else? He closed the distance between us in a few long strides. His voice was laced with something that sounded almost like anguish. Can't you just reconsider? Give up on this idea? Do you really have to go through with it? Why can't I have a few worldly desires? It's not like men are the only ones with physical needs. I was just about to give him a piece of my mind when a familiar and deeply unpleasant voice cut through the air behind me. Riley? What are you doing here? Someone called out with a laugh. I turned, my face twisting in disgust. Just as I expected, it was the handsome but utterly repulsive face of my ex-boyfriend, Ryan. He had a silk robe tied loosely around his waist, and a string of bright red hickeys trailed from his neck down to his collarbone. Faint, telltale scratch marks were half hidden by the fabric on his chest. It was obvious which bed he had just crawled out of. Not long ago, I discovered he was regularly hooking up with other people. When I caught him red-handed, Ryan had just casually zipped up his pants, leaned against the hotel headboard, and lit a cigar. He blew a perfectly formed smoke ring in my furious face and smiled calmly. It's just for fun, don't worry. He reached for my hand, his voice deceptively gentle. You're my one and only real girlfriend. His words were like ice water poured over the molten lava of my anger. In that moment, a sudden, chilling clarity washed over me. Ryan might have a human face, but the gap between our core values was wider than the gap between a human and a dog. And you can't reason with a dog. There was no point in arguing. I pulled my hand away and slapped him hard across the face. Not anymore. As I left, I saw him standing there, stunned. The cigar slipped from his fingers and fell to the carpet, burning small, irreparable black holes into the fabric. I closed my eyes, trying to force down the ugly memories that were bubbling up. But the dog in front of me just wouldn't stop barking. Ryan looked me up and down, stroking his chin with an amused expression. What, are you here to check up on me? You just broke up with me. Regretting it already? He chuckled. You coy little thing, always saying the opposite of what you mean. Oh, dear God. If I have sinned, let me be punished by the law, not by this cringy, sleazy torture. I felt physically ill. But then another thought occurred to me, why should I be the only one suffering? I glanced around, then grabbed Crow, who was standing beside me. I linked my arm through his and smiled sweetly. You shouldn't talk like that. You'll make my boyfriend angry. Ryan had an ego the size of a planet. The thought that the little girlfriend he assumed would be pining for him had found someone new so quickly after dumping him, for a man like him, it was like another slap in the face. Just as I predicted, Ryan's expression froze. A moment later, a malicious grin spread across his face. Is that so? Well, in that case, he should probably call me teacher. After all, everything he's enjoying now is something I taught you. A chill ran down my spine, and my whole body went cold with rage. In the next second, a warm hand closed over mine. Crow took a half step forward, positioning himself to block Ryan's slimy gaze from my body. He glanced dismissively at the marks on Ryan's chest. So, you're admitting you're a terrible lover? Society is always telling women to be ashamed of their sexual experience, while men boast about how many women they've slept with. Ryan probably never imagined that another man would completely sidestep that unspoken rule and turn the patriarchal standard right back on him. He stared, dumbfounded, for a long moment. Finally losing his veneer of civility, his eyes filled with rage. You want to start something? Crow cut him off, taking another step forward. His 6'3" frame and intimidating build instantly made Ryan look like a skinny little twig in comparison. Ryan glared at him, his face dark with fury. After a moment, his gaze shifted over Crow's shoulder to lock onto me. The venom in his eyes was so intense it felt like he wanted to skin me alive. Fine. I'll remember you. After Ryan stalked off, I turned to Crow, feeling a little embarrassed. Thank you. I quickly added, I'll pay you extra. Our philosophies might not align, but he seemed like a genuinely good person. Crow didn't respond right away. He studied me for a moment, a hesitant look on his face. Did you hire me because you just broke up with him? He figured it out? I nodded awkwardly. It might have something to do with it. Crow let out a deep sigh, and his gaze softened considerably. There was a clear look of pity in his eyes. He's not worth doing this over. Cherish yourself, live your life. You only get one. I'll refund your money. Just promise me you won't do this again, okay? I was a bit confused. I'd heard stories of clients trying to convince sex workers to leave the business. I'd never heard of it happening the other way around. But he had just helped me, and his advice seemed to come from a good place. I tried to read his expression, but after 1 second, my eyes inevitably slid downwards. Damn it. His chest was just too big. It was so distracting you couldn't see anything else. I'll think about it, I said. So, can I still contact you? Remembering his strict rules, I quickly added, not for anything else, just to talk. Crow gave a solemn nod. If you ever need anything, you can call me anytime. He extended his hand, and I shook it. His hand was large and warm, his fingers long and strong, completely enveloping mine. Let's start over. My name is Nathan. After that day, Nathan and I settled into a comfortable online friendship. He sent me good morning, good afternoon, and good night texts every single day. He also shared photos of beautiful little moments from his life, a brilliant sunset, a crimson autumn leaf, a cute dog being walked by a stranger. The only weird thing was, if I didn't reply for a while, he would transform into an intensely possessive boyfriend. Check in. Why haven't you responded for an hour? Where did you go? What are you doing? Answer me. He was trying so hard, I could almost cry. He was using every trick in the book to keep me from finding another escort. This went on until late one night. I finally couldn't take it anymore and decided we needed to have a frank conversation. I think people should be free to make their own choices. Why are you always trying to stop me? After a long pause, a huge block of text came through from Nathan. I peered at the screen. My mother was in an unhappy marriage, and because of that, she once felt the same way you do, she wanted to. After my father left her, she found it even harder to suppress the urge to, and in the end, she abandoned me to go. I only learned later that an overly strong desire to can be a symptom of a psychological condition. You can talk to me about anything you're thinking. You don't have to feel ashamed. You're not a bad person, you're just sick. Damn this messaging app and its overzealous content filter. So many sensitive words that violated the terms of service. Luckily, I had some experience with this. I didn't know exactly what words he'd used, but since they were all blocked, I just had to assume they were the most scandalous things possible. That was usually a safe bet. After a moment of consideration, I was pretty sure I had the gist of it. He seemed to think I had a sex addiction. And he was using his mother's story as a cautionary tale to convince me not to indulge my desires. Wow, women of his mother's generation were already hiring escorts? His mom sounds pretty progressive. Just to make sure I was on the right track, I had a brilliant idea. When I replied, I deliberately used the same words I suspected he had, the ones that got censored. My sent message looked like this. It's not that I always want to do it, I just can't help wanting to have some fun, sometimes. And don't worry, I won't sleep around, behind your back. If I get the urge, I'll tell you first. Perfect. I got a perfect score on my fill-in-the-blanks quiz. A moment later, a new message popped up from him. I understand what you mean. But maybe we should try to follow the platform's rules from now on? Good point. If we kept using censored words, we might get flagged and have our accounts suspended. I completely agreed. You're right. Let's just use that as a code word from now on. And so, we reached a mutual understanding. I put down my phone, satisfied, and drifted off to sleep. What a refreshing and honest exchange of souls. Nathan and I were truly on the same wavelength. After our late-night heart-to-heart, my relationship with Nathan progressed by leaps and bounds. Maybe because we'd been so open with each other, he was much more direct during his daily check-ins. Nathan, how are you feeling today? Are you thinking about that? It was a valid question, but a little blunt. I hesitated for a long time before typing a vague reply. I'm okay. He seemed completely oblivious to my shyness. Nathan, if you do feel the urge, you have to tell me. I'll come find you immediately. Me, and what would you do if you came over? Just talk? The typing bubble appeared and disappeared for a while. He seemed to be thinking long and hard before his message came through. Nathan, is there anything you want to do? Besides that? I thought for a second. Me, let me touch your chest. Abs are also acceptable. Nathan, and if I let you, will you give up the idea of that? Me, not necessarily. But it might help for a little while. He went silent again. I guess that meant no touching. Disappointed, I turned off my phone. 10 minutes later, the screen lit up. Nathan, image. Nathan, touching isn't a good idea, but how about a picture? Does this make you feel any better? Oh, it most certainly did. My jaw dropped. What a wonderful surprise. His nipples were so pink, they looked so soft and tender. Me, I want to bite them. Nathan, no. That's not appropriate. Me, it's my only dying wish. Pleading_face.jpg. Nathan, how about a few more pictures instead? Image. A chest picture, and a picture, and one showing off his V-lines. I'd seen the whole glorious set. Me, I think you missed one. Nathan, I did? Me, the abs have 3 sections, upper, middle, and lower. I've seen the upper and middle. Where's the last one? Maybe because I'd been teasing him so much, he caught on quickly this time. No. I sent him a string of 10 pleading emojis. He remained unmoved. Nathan, if you have the energy to joke around with me, you must be feeling better. I'm a serious and dedicated person. I would never joke about something this important. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to redouble my efforts and prove the sincerity of my request. Nathan, okay, be good. There will be another chest picture tomorrow. I immediately surrendered. Me, okay. I am the best, most well-behaved girl ever. Me, so, can I see one with those little clamps on the nipples, with a little chain connecting them? Pleading_face. Nathan, we'll see how you behave. TSK. This guy had learned how to handle me without any training at all. Ha, a cheap little trick. Faced with such temptation, I, of course, chose to say. Me, yes. The more the merrier. From that day on, it was like a switch had been flipped in him. He started finding new and creative ways to send me muscle pics every day. At first, his technique was lacking, and he relied entirely on his phenomenal physique. But under my constant guidance, his photography skills improved dramatically. He even started to improvise. Before long, he didn't even need my instructions to send photos that made my face flush and my heart pound. 2 months later, his photo game was on par with the top influencers on TikTok and Instagram. And the most impressive part was that every single picture hit my aesthetic preferences perfectly. It really felt like he was trying to please me. Even someone as dense as me could start to sense something different in the air. Does Nathan have feelings for me? But then I'd remember his profession. Maybe this was all just part of the service, an act? What did it all mean? I racked my brain but couldn't come up with an answer. So, when I met up with my best friend, Jessica, I decided to test the waters with her. Okay, hypothetical. Let's say there's an escort, and he texts you every day and sends you a ton of pictures. Not only does he not charge you, but he actually tells you not to spend money on him. What do you think is going on? Is it true love? My friend was certain. It's a romance scam. Not ready to give up, I pulled out my phone. But his chest is, like, really big. Jessica's entire attitude shifted after she'd had a moment to appreciate the photos. Well, you should have led with that. If you can get with that, it's a win. She thought for another moment, then added, just don't catch feelings. Love and all that crap is just too much trouble. Seeing me hesitate, she shot me a glare. Have you already forgotten how you cried to me and drank for 3 straight days after you broke up with that cheating scumbag? I guiltily fiddled with my fingers. The feelings you give someone are like spilled water, you can never really get them back. No matter how decisive the breakup is, the scars left on your heart still need time to heal. What if I got hurt like that again? I thought back to that miserable experience and shivered. I quickly shook my head. No feelings. I'm just having fun. Jessica nodded, satisfied, and finally let it go. As we were leaving the restaurant, I suddenly stopped and looked back over my shoulder. For a second there, I thought I saw a familiar figure. But when I looked again, the restaurant was just a sea of strangers. This was the place Jessica and I always met, and a lot of our acquaintances knew that. Was it just a coincidence, or was it intentional? What's wrong? Jessica asked. I thought about it for a second, then turned and linked my arm through hers, walking away. Nothing. Now that my objective was clear, I didn't hesitate. That night, I sent Nathan a message. Me, I want to see you. Nathan, are you thinking about that again? Me, something like that. He hesitated for about 30 seconds. Then, a flood of messages burst onto my screen. Nathan, send me your address. I'm on my way now. Nathan, don't move. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything. Nathan, give me 15 minutes. Nathan, you have to wait for me. Don't do anything reckless, you understand? Why was he still so wound up about this? I already promised him I wouldn't go looking for anyone else. I quickly typed back. Okay, I'll wait for you. 12 minutes later, a breathless Nathan was knocking at my door. His jacket was slung over his arm, and a few buttons on his shirt were undone, revealing a tantalizing glimpse of his powerful chest rising and falling as he caught his breath. He tried to explain between gasps. The last few traffic lights were backed up. I ran the rest of the way. The second he was inside, he started anxiously looking me up and down. Are you okay? You didn't do anything, did you? I assured him repeatedly that I hadn't, but he still grabbed my shoulders and pulled me in front of him. His eyes scanned every inch of my exposed skin, studying me intensely for a long moment. Finally, he seemed to relax. He let out a long, deep breath, his chest heaving. Then, suddenly, he pulled me into a tight hug. Instantly, my face was squished between two soft, springy objects. Ah, so this is what it feels like to be smothered by pecks. I was in heaven. So blissful I could barely breathe. Nathan's low murmur vibrated through his chest and into my ear, sending tingles down my spine. Do you have any idea how worried I was? A warmth spread through my chest, and I stood on my tiptoes, reaching up. Ugh, I couldn't reach his lips. Nathan let out a muffled chuckle. He suddenly bent down, scooped me up with one arm, and carried me over to the sofa. The solid muscle of his arm supported my thighs as he lifted me, then gently set me down. He brushed his thumb gently across my lips. Is this okay? I nodded, and he leaned in to kiss me. It was a restrained kiss, light and tentative. Afterwards, he pulled me into his arms, and we lay back on the sofa together, him looking like he was settling in for a long talk. There are some things I haven't told you, he began. The reason my mother was like that, it was also because my father cheated on her. Basically, it was the classic story, a divorced dad, a lonely mom, a helpless son, and a broken home. Look, I am happy to listen to your childhood trauma. But you know what I want to do after I'm done listening, right? I listened distractedly, murmuring hum and aha at appropriate intervals. He finished his parents' story and was about to start on his own when I finally lost my patience. I rolled on top of him, pushing him down onto the cushions. I pressed my hands against his instantly tense chest and covered his mouth with mine. What was he even talking about? If you have all this energy, shouldn't you be using it for something else? Nathan sighed in resignation. He placed a hand on my waist to keep me from falling off and let me kiss him for a while. Finally, he murmured against my lips, so you don't want to die anymore? When did I ever want to die? Since when was that a thing? We stared at each other, our eyes filled with mutual, profound confusion. If you don't want to commit suicide, why did you hire a hitman? He asked. I hired an escort. I yelled back. Oh, no. This goddamn content filter. Nathan's lips pressed into a firm line. He gently peeled me off his chest. Sit up. As I watched with a heavy heart, he rebuttoned his shirt all the way up to his throat, instantly transforming back into the buttoned-up, conservative man I'd first met. All this time, you just thought of me as an escort? As a toy? His handsome face was glacial. I felt like he could kill me with a single look. I mumbled, well, I wouldn't put it exactly like that. Nathan's gaze was sharp, dissecting me. Then, he suddenly lifted the hem of his shirt. In an instant, my eyes were glued to his 8-pack. Ha, Nathan scoffed. He had a look of grim understanding on his face as he let out a cold laugh. He forcefully tucked his shirt back into his pants, making sure it was completely secure, determined not to give me another free peek. My heart ached for the soft, springy, smooth, and tender chest muscles I had just been touching. I wasn't ready to give up. I scooted closer to him and tentatively reached out a hand. You know what they say, never go to bed angry. Maybe we could resolve this conflict in a simpler way? Nathan let out a laugh that was pure frustration. Fine. Am I your fiancé or your husband? Pick one. I snatched my hand back. So petty. All I did was touch his chest, and now he's trying to force me into marriage. Seeing me shrink back into the sofa like a startled quail, he sighed. He covered his face with his hand, looking utterly defeated. He took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. I get it. You were hurt because your ex-boyfriend cheated on you. We'll put aside the whole hiring an escort thing for now. But what about the future? Are you really never going to love anyone again? He looked up, his gaze serious and unwavering. The eyes that met mine were pure and clear. It's okay if you don't love me. I just hope you won't punish yourself for someone else's mistakes. Please don't give up on your ability to love and be loved. You're a wonderful girl, and you deserve all the best things in this world. My mind was a chaotic mess. I looked down, avoiding his intense gaze. I couldn't find any words. Nathan's phone had been buzzing nonstop. He waited for a long time, but I didn't respond. Finally, he stood up with a sigh. "Anyway, I'm glad you're safe. I have an urgent matter to attend to, so I have to go. I'm going to be very busy for a while. Let's both take some time to cool down and think things over." Before he left, Nathan walked over to me. He reached out and gently stroked my hair. His hand was large and strong, but the touch was so light, so tender, it was heartbreaking. "Riley, it's true that you can't get hurt if you don't give away your heart. But you might also miss out on a lot of beautiful scenery." The door clicked shut behind him. My eyes started to burn. I let my body go limp and buried my face in the sofa cushions. Did I disappoint him? Does Nathan hate me now? His scent still lingered in the air. The fabric of the sofa still held his warmth. Our relationship hadn't even started, but it felt like it was already over. Life went back to normal. My days were a monotonous cycle of work and home. Whenever I saw something interesting, I'd send it to Nathan to share a piece of my day, a funny meme, some office gossip, a dramatic story I'd heard from my neighbor. But, just as he'd said, he seemed to be genuinely busy with other things. His replies were no longer immediate. He definitely wasn't sending me daily pictures anymore. He'd usually just send a few short words in response and then go silent again. And then, as the old saying goes, when it rains, it pours. Shortly after Nathan faded from my life, some suspicious things started happening. First, it was at work. The receptionist called out to me, "You have a flower delivery." Tucked inside a huge, ostentatious bouquet of blood-red roses was an elegant card. I opened it, confused. "I know everything about you. Just throw them out," I said to the receptionist with a smile. Then, it was at home. A package I hadn't ordered was sitting on my doorstep. I tore open the wrapper that had my name on it. Inside a beautifully decorated box was a set of delicate lingerie. On top of it lay a postcard drenched in perfume. "Do you like it? It would look great on you." Without changing my expression, I tossed the whole thing in the trash. And then, a little while later, my phone buzzed with a message from an untraceable number. When I opened it, I saw a collection of photos of me, secretly taken in various places. I deleted them one by one and closed the message. As if anticipating my actions, my screen lit up again. New message, "Miss me?" New message, "I'm always watching you." I stared at the screen for a long, long time. It had started with covert stalking, and now it had escalated to open threats. The malice was getting stronger, no longer hidden. His patience must be wearing thin. I thought about it for a while. Then I opened my contacts list and started typing. A few days later, I went downstairs in the evening to take out the trash. The thick bushes cast dark, shifting shadows in the night, swaying with the wind. Suddenly, a pair of arms wrapped around me from behind. A voice whispered in my ear, "Miss me?" Ryan rested his head on my shoulder, inhaling the scent of my hair. It was an intimate gesture, like something between lovers. "I knew you couldn't get over me. That whole new boyfriend thing was just a lie to make me jealous. You went out drinking, you hired an escort, you even said you'd never date again. Riley, you're so in love with me." I wasn't surprised. "So it really was you following me and my friend at the restaurant?" Ryan was unconcerned. "Come back to me. Aren't you afraid someone will call the police if you try to kidnap me in public?" He laughed, his arm tightening around me possessively. "Who's going to care? I'm your boyfriend. This is a private matter. I never wanted to break up with you, I've always liked you. Besides, as long as you behave, I won't hurt you." "And if I don't behave?" Ryan stiffened for a second. "You." I cut him off. "If I refuse, what will you do? Beat me? Lock me up? Humiliate me?" The man behind me was silent for a moment, his smile fading. Suddenly, he grabbed my jaw, his grip painfully tight. He forced me to turn my head and meet his dark, menacing gaze. My patience is limited, Riley. Stop trying to provoke me. He pulled out a small knife and pressed it against the small of my back. The cold, sharp edge bit into my skin. Walk forward. Get in the car. Discretion is the better part of valor. I stopped talking and obediently did as he said, sliding into the passenger seat. My compliance seemed to please Ryan. He put the knife away and patted my cheek with a possessive, almost tender gesture. Good. That's my good girl. He closed my door for me, as if he were a perfect gentleman. But as he started to walk around to the driver's side, 3 figures burst out from the bushes lining the street. It was my amazing best friend, Jessica, leading 2 burly men. She might have been running in the back, but she was yelling the loudest. That's him. Get him. 10 minutes later, the 2 men had Ryan's arms twisted behind his back, pinning him against the hood of the car. Jessica strode over, her high heels clicking aggressively on the pavement. Smack. Smack. 2 sharp, ringing sounds echoed in the quiet street. She'd given him a matching set of handprints on his cheeks. You think you can mess with my friend? I'll have you broken, you bastard. Seeing that the situation was under control, I opened the car door and casually stepped out. A professional security team is really worth the money. I unfastened the tiny button camera from my shirt and waved it cheerfully at Ryan. Thanks for the confession. This should be more than enough to put you away. I made a quick phone call. A few minutes later, a police car came screaming around the corner. Nathan, dressed in his police uniform, got out with a few other officers. They took over for the security guards, holding Ryan down. Cuff him and take him away. Just as they were about to lead him to the car, I called out, wait a minute. As Ryan looked on with a pathetic glimmer of hope in his eyes, I ran up to the car. There was one very important thing I forgot to tell you. Not only can I love again, I can love a lot of other people. In a move that felt like history repeating itself, I grabbed Nathan again. I jumped up and planted a big kiss on his cheek. See this man? I announced. He's younger than you, hotter than you, has a bigger chest than you, and is way better at satisfying me. As soon as the words left my mouth, Ryan's face turned green. Nathan's face turned red. The other officers, who had been listening in on the drama, started cheering and catcalling. Nathan, who knew you had it in you? A pleasure to meet you, ma'am. Feel free to come by and inspect our work anytime. Go on, detective, go be with her. We'll handle the cleanup here. Nathan, trying desperately to maintain a stoic expression, aimed a playful kick at the group of overenergetic young cops. Shut up, you idiots, and get back to work. Laughing, they hauled the one person who wasn't laughing away. Then, I took Nathan by the hand to meet the family. Jessica, this is the guy I was telling you about, the ES. Before the word court could leave my lips, Nathan coughed loudly, cutting me off. Jessica, hello. I'm a criminal detective. I was on a long-term undercover assignment, so I couldn't disclose my identity before. I glanced sideways at his bright red ears. He really cared about his image. Whatever. I had more pressing matters to attend to. I ran over to Jessica, linking my arm through hers and studying her expression carefully. I had just promised her I wouldn't get into a relationship, and here I was, showing up with a new man on my arm. Are you mad at me? Sure enough, Jessica rolled her eyes dramatically. But what she said wasn't what I expected. Why would I be mad? I was only trying to stop you before because you got blackout drunk over a breakup. Now you can send your ex to jail without even batting an eye. What's there for me to worry about? If this one doesn't work out, you'll just find another one. She gave me an approving thumbs up. This is how you should be. If the love is gone, it's gone. Toss your hair and walk away. We're like eagles. We love fiercely, we hate fiercely, and we're not afraid of anything. Tears welled up in my eyes. I threw my arms around her. Oh, honey. Don't you worry. There are thousands of men in this world, but you will always be my number one. Nathan drove me home. The car was silent the entire way. When we got to my door, he just stood there, hesitating about something. "Aren't you coming in?" I asked, confused. "Oh." He seemed to steel himself, then stepped inside. "Riley. I want to apologize. What I said to you last time was too harsh. And then my case wrapped up, and I got buried in work, so I never had a chance to talk to you properly." This was the first time I had seen him in days. He looked like he'd lost some weight. His skin was tanned a honey gold color. Nathan took a deep breath, and then slowly began to unbutton his shirt. "I have a gift for you." The collar opened, little by little, revealing the scenery beneath. A delicate gold chain was draped across the valley between his pecs, connecting two small, pink clamps. It was exactly as I had once described. I thought I was going to have a nosebleed right then and there. I pounced on him like a hungry tiger, tackling him onto the bed. I closed my eyes in anticipation. 10 minutes later, I blinked my eyes open, confused. "Huh? Is that it?" With a nose that prominent, you'd expect more. Nathan's handsome face was beet red. It was my first time. I was a little excited. I couldn't control it. I understood immediately. Right. Men. They always have an excuse. "I had a long day at work, I'm too tired, you're just too beautiful, baby." It all means the same thing. I sympathetically cradled his head in my hands and gave it a couple of reassuring pats. "It's okay," I cooed. 1 minute is still very impressive. He didn't say anything. He just suddenly flipped me over and pinned me beneath him. 3 days later, I was begging to be let out of the apartment. I see the sofa, the windowsill, the dining table, the mirror, the carpet. I have PTSD. I can't breathe. I was wrapped in a blanket, refusing to let go, thrashing around like a child throwing a tantrum. Then, a brilliant idea struck me. Wait. The thing with Ryan. I still haven't given my statement. I have to go to the police station. My new police officer boyfriend was completely unfazed. He gave me a stern look. "Since you brought up the police station, there is something we need to settle." "What?" I asked, confused. Nathan smirked. "The matter of you hiring an escort. According to the state penal code, soliciting a prostitute is an illegal act, punishable by up to 15 days in detention. If you ever do it again, I'll have to arrest you myself." He glanced around the room, and his long fingers tapped the metal post of the headboard. "Handcuffed right here would be nice." 15 days? Is he serious? I immediately raised my right hand and swore to the heavens. Never again. Absolutely never again. No one is more law-abiding than me, thank you very much. Nathan finally broke into a smile. He leaned down and kissed my forehead gently. "Good. I'm all you'll ever need."